Hi, I'm Wayne. In this video, I will be providing a virtual tour of the home of Gilgo Beach serial killer suspect Rex Heuermann. I will also share new details about the basement and the area where he allegedly murdered his victims. I built this model using the original blueprints and the dozens of photographs that have been published in the media. The first thing you'll notice is that the front looks slightly different. This is because I based it on two images that were taken when the murders occurred. Back then, the porch was walled off by large hedges and timber-framed glass panels. While researching this project, I reached out to a number of people who had been inside the home and basement. Although they were understandably hesitant to say too much, some of them did provide me with information that previously wasn't public. On top of that, I also briefly spoke with Asa Ellerup's attorney, Robert Macedonio, who gave me one or two minor details. In the end, I was able to piece together a clear picture of the house that provides further insight into how the crimes may have unfolded. Firstly, I am going to remove the roof and show you an overview of the layout. Please note that a few things differ from the original blueprints. I will highlight some of these changes after the tour. The house consists of 7 rooms and a garage, or a garage depending on how you pronounce it. There are 3 bedrooms. The master bedroom is situated in the southeast corner facing the front. The basement is accessible via a stairway in the kitchen and bilgo doors at the rear of the house. Now, let's go inside. We will start by entering the house via the porch and front door. Once you step inside, you can see the living room and the dining room on the left. To the right, there is a hallway that leads to the kitchen, bathroom, and bedrooms. This is the living room. The ceiling has exposed 2x8-inch beams, and the fireplace is made of red brick. Here we can see the dining room area. I was able to match this area with a photograph that the family released after the police searched their home. This small room is labelled as a den in the blueprints. It provides access to the garage. We are now entering the kitchen. This room was remodeled at some point in the mid-2000s. The door on the right leads down to the basement. We are now looking out into the hallway. If we were to turn right, we could go back to the front door. However, we are going to turn left and look at the bedrooms and bathroom. This is the smallest bedroom in the house. The next room is the master bedroom. It has a built-in closet space on the northern wall. Finally, there's the bathroom and bedroom number 2. Now, let's go back down the hallway and exit the front door. That way, I can bring you back into the house via the garage. Heuermann may have used this area as a workshop. If you look to the left, you will notice a large workbench. At the back, there is a door that provides access to the den. Soon, I will bring you down to the basement. But first, allow me to quickly highlight which areas of the home differ from the original blueprints. The blueprints didn't have a door going between the garage and the house. However, it is visible in this photograph. I have been told that this half wall by the front door might not exist. I was also informed that there is no wall between the kitchen and the living room and dining room area. I am not sure how they are currently separated. Originally, the back door was supposed to be in the kitchen. However, it is actually situated in the dining room. Now, let's take a look at the basement. The blueprints show two steel WF beams running in opposite directions, supported by 5 3.5-inch lally columns. The wooden beams rest on the steel beams and concrete walls. Note that the basement does not currently look like this. It is divided up into several rooms and storage closets. These rooms are not present in the blueprints, as they were added over time after the house was built. ASA's lawyer, Robert Macedonio, told me that the gun vault is to the right when you walk down the Bilko steps. Another source, who wishes to remain private, said that there is a long, narrow room when you walk down the stairs from the kitchen. There was also a large utility room on the left side. These descriptions make sense, as it is likely that the basement was divided up between the lally columns. The rooms have a mixture of different types of wood paneling and drywall. Some ceilings are finished, while others are not. This photo was released by the family shortly after the first search. I think that many presumed that this was a picture of the garage. However, that is not the case. When I pointed out that these two rooms look very different, Macedonio confirmed that the photo on the right is from the basement. After speaking with one source, I suspect that this photo might also be from a different area where the ceiling is finished. The impression I got is that the basement is a mixture of different rooms and finishes, and that these may have changed over time. Reports that he had a soundproof dungeon were incorrect. This was actually just a gun vault with a big iron door. There are many conflicting details about the gun vault. Macedonio told News Nation that it was an unfinished room, not some kind of soundproof chamber. One former co-worker said that Heuermann had specifically poured concrete for the room. Some sources called it huge, while other descriptions imply that it was just big enough to walk into. Because of these conflicting details, I do not feel comfortable speculating about its design. However, I do not believe that the gun vault really matters. In May of 2024, the police conducted a second search of the house after they found information on a hard drive that had been found in Heuermann's basement. The manual suggested that he converted one of the rooms in his basement into a temporary torture chamber. 2 months later, Macedonio had an interview with News 12, during which he pointed to this area and said that it appeared to be the primary focus of the second search. The area in question is part of the utility room that I was told about. However, I wasn't just told about the existence of this room. I was actually given a pretty good description of what it looked like when the murders occurred. I was also given details about what the victims would have seen if they willingly walked down into the basement. Most people, including myself, presumed that the victims would have never accompanied Heuermann down into the basement. When we hear the word basement, we think of a dark, creepy cellar. Our mind pictures an uninviting place, especially when a suspected serial killer is involved. However, with Heuermann's basement, that was not the case. When you walked down the stairs from the kitchen, you entered a narrow room. One source described this room as dated but cozy. It was not a scary place. Instead, it was a hangout area with carpet, wall paneling, a finished ceiling, a couch, and even a bar in the corner. Basically, it was kind of like a den. Note that this 3D model is an accurate visual representation. Details such as the color of the carpet, the position of the couch, the type of couch, and other items have been withheld. The goal here is to provide viewers with a feel for the type of room that the victim saw if they did walk down the stairs from the kitchen. My sources and I agreed that publicizing everything would be irresponsible given the fact that this is an ongoing investigation and there is a potential for false witnesses to exploit such information. This room was homely. However, the same cannot be said for the utility room that lay behind the door near the stairs. That room was actually far worse than I had imagined. I am mindful that some of the victim's relatives may watch this video. A model of this room will likely conjure up unpleasant images. If you are a relative who wasn't informed about this video, then you can press pause and read about the room in the description. That way you can mentally prepare yourself or just skip the last part entirely. When a source described this room as an unfinished basement utility room, I showed them a selection of photographs that I believed matched their description. To my surprise, they told me that I was wrong and then promptly sent me an image that was far worse. This room was large, dark, filthy, and unfinished. It had very little in it except an old water heater, pipes, and some common household items. The wooden beams in the ceiling were exposed and there was no paneling on the walls. The concrete floor was also bare. All in all, it seemed like the room had been left untouched since the 1950s. This room was perfect for Heuermann as it was a wide, empty space that he could easily convert into a makeshift torture chamber. The beams allowed him to erect drop cloths and other temporary structures. He also didn't have to worry about the victims coming into contact with his personal belongings. Another significant fact is that this utility room provided access to a crawl space underneath the den. This room may look different nowadays. For example, it may have been panelled, divided up into 2 rooms, or connected to some of the other rooms. One popular theory is that Heuermann brought his victims into the house via the garage. Although this is certainly plausible, there are a number of problems with it. The first problem is that the 2003 Chevy Avalanche would be a very tight fit. It is a large truck and he is a large man. The garage would need to be clear of most obstacles, and even then, he'd still likely have issues opening the door and getting out. During my research, I found that many Avalanche owners struggle with this issue and choose to leave their trucks outside. This may explain why Google Street View images show Heuermann's truck parked in the driveway or beside the sidewalk. The second issue is that the garage is not mentioned in his planning document. If the garage did need to be clear of obstacles, then you'd imagine that someone as meticulous as Heuermann would have written a reminder about this in his manual. I may be wrong, but I personally think that he pulled up outside the garage and walked them in via the front porch. This was the quickest, quietest, and most direct route. The victims arrived late at night, at a time when most people were tucked up in their beds or watching TV. The odds of someone looking out their window at that exact moment in time were very low. Since you started watching this video, it is likely that at least one of your neighbors came or went. People often say that Heuermann's house looks creepy. However, this is mostly due to the fact that he is suspected of being a serial killer. As they say, hindsight is 20/20. Although the exterior looks run down these days, the paint job would have been much fresher during the murders. In addition to this, the victims would have only seen the house at night. The victims were sex workers who would have visited all kinds of rundown places. They would have also been accustomed to married men availing of their services. From their perspective, this was just another routine outcall. People often forget that Heuermann would have spent 40 to 50 minutes with the victims while they were en route. During this period of small talk, he had plenty of time to disarm and prep them. To prep them, he may have told them about the little bar area that he had set up in the basement. He may have also explained that he avoids using the bed that he shares with his wife. To disarm them, he would have talked about his family and his job. He may have even placed extra emphasis on the fact that he had a young daughter. Although there are some accounts of Heuermann acting in an aggressive, combative manner, there are also reports that he came across as nerdy, smart, and friendly. Heuermann likely portrayed himself as a successful and friendly family man who needed to blow off some steam. The late Richard Dormer once described the killer as a spider who lures his victims into his web. It now appears that Dormer was correct. Unfortunately, the victims didn't see any red flags. Through trial and error and much thought, Heuermann had learned how to conceal them. He had essentially mastered a performance that put the victims at ease. Sadly, by the time they realized that they were in danger, it was already too late.